Hello, class. My name is Maximiliano Cota. This is my final speech on communications. The topic I'm going to be talking about is video games and violence, the correlation between them. My stance on this is that video games are not the main cause of violence. There's 3 points I want to talk about that'll help support my thesis statement. Those points being mental disorders, easy access to weaponry, and historic events I want to talk about. I'm going to go ahead and talk about mental disorders first. They are the main reason why people become violent here in the US, especially after playing violent video games. These mental disorders can range from antisocial behavior, anxiety, depression. Um, these mental disorders combined with heavy stories, strong and depressive stories, can further enhance these negative feelings, but should not be considered the main source of it because these mental problems were already in the person before playing these video games. Um, a study and an article conducted by the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry support this by stating, and I'm going to read this because it's a quote: children who suffer from anxiety or other mental health issues may be more likely to suffer the adverse health effects that some video games can inflict. Um, History and historic events can also show us how video games are not the main cause of violence. Violent acts and crimes, such as wars, like World War II, the Civil War, and other wars, we can all agree that they're very violent, and people were not playing video games back then, especially during World War II. I mean, video games were not nearly as developed as they are today. They were definitely not nearly as graphic, but these things are still happening. I think that's a good point. It makes a good point as to why video games are not the main cause of violence. Um, However, there is more recent events like the shootings we've had, unfortunate shootings. Um, there's one shooting I want to point out, one that happened in Texas. There was a gunman who killed 22 people in a Walmart. I'm sure you guys remember it. It was a worldwide news. It happened at El Paso in Texas. And when he was captured, he made a reference to video games, more specifically, video game soldiers. He was indicating that he was familiar with video games and violence. Many were actually very quick to assume that video games was to blame for the incident. However, I don't think, actually, this leads to my third point. I don't think that's to blame. I think that one of the main reasons why he did it and how he did it are the easy access to weaponry and guns. The fact that he had access to handguns, ARs, just being able to have these weapons allowed him to do what he did. The fact that anyone could buy guns and have guns in their house is it's one of the main reasons why there is shootings in the U.S., not video games. Um, Author Philip M. Bofi, he states in an article called "Do Violent Video Games Lead to Violence?" He states, it seems clear that El Paso gunman was primarily motivated by ethnic hatred. His manifesto said that the attack was a response to Hispanic invasion of Texas. The guy thought he was being invaded, or he thought Hispanics and Latinos invaded Texas. Um, I don't think he would have been able to commit these crimes if he didn't have access to weaponry. Uh, and I mean, it makes sense. People worldwide have access to video games. Anyone can play video games, but not everybody can buy weapons the same way they can buy them here in the U.S. It's so easy to get weapons. It's almost as easy as buying video games, honestly. Um, so I'm gonna show you guys a couple of charts I have. I'm gonna show you this one first. These are the average weekly hours spent on video games. Let me see if I can get this on focus. You see how China actually has the most time in hours. It has 12.39 a week. Kids in China play 12.39, an average of 12.39 hours a week. Here in the US, we have 7.71. It's a little less in China. And you'll see in another chart how the difference in shootings is. And you see in other countries, there's actually other countries that have even more playtime than the US. Globally, the average time is 8.45. But yeah, US is not number one when it comes to video games. How much time people play video games a week. let me go ahead and show you the school shooting since 2009. Let's see, there we go. The US, I have it really big over here. The US has 288. That is a huge number when compared to these other countries. You can combine all these countries and still they wouldn't come close to the US. You see how Canada has 2, France has 2, Germany has had 1, Japan, Italy, and the UK, they all have 0 since 2009. It's just, you cannot compare these numbers. All right, thank you guys.